read this book, 50 Famous Story, Bruce and the Spiders. Many years ago, Robert Bruce was the king of Scotland. He was a brave and wise king. The king of England was at war with him. He led his great army into Scotland to drive Bruce from the land. Robert Bruce and his brave men fought the English army 6 times, and 6 times they were beaten. Finally, his army was scattered and he escaped to the safety of the forest and mountain. Robert Bruce was the king of the Scotland and he fought with the England king, and they fight 6 times and he lose all the war. Then his army scattered and he run away the forest and mountain. One rainy day, Bruce was resting in a cave. He could hear the rain falling heavily outside. He was tired and ready to give up all hope. He didn't know how he would win back his land. While he was thinking, he saw a spider weaving her web. My daughter likes spiders sing. And he watched her as she worked slowly and carefully. 6 times she tried to throw her thread from one beam to another, and 6 times it fell short. She tried to throw her thread from one beam to another. 6 times it fell short. Poor thing, said Bruce. You ours know what it is to fail. What it is to fail. You ours know what it is to fail. But the spider did not give up. Robert Bruce forgot his own trouble while he watched her swing herself out on the thin line. She tried 7th time. Would she fail again? No! This time she carried the thread safely to the beam and fastened it there. I will always try 7 times, cried Bruce. He called his men together and told them of his plan. Then he sent a message of hope to his unhappy people. He gathered an army of brave Scotsmen around him. For the 7th time, they fought the King of England, and this time the Scottish army won and sent the English force back across the border. It is said that since that day, no one by the name of Bruce would never hurt a spider. It is said that since that day, no one by the name of Bruce would ever hurt a spider. The little creature saw the king never to give up, and that lesson has never been forgotten. Okay, I will retell about the story to you. The Bruce is the Scotland king, and he had fight with the king of England 6 times, and every word he was lost. Then his army scattered and he escaped to the safety land. And there he saw the spider make the trap to catch the thread, and the spider tried to tie the thread, but the spider had failed 6 times, and Bruce thought, Spider, would give up, but the spider didn't give up, and at 7 times the spider could divide the thread to other beam. So the Bruce could make the plan to 7th war, and he gathered his army and he fight with England king, and he won the war. Then he could find his land again. And in this story, we can learn the lesson. If you don't give up, you will succeed in the future. Oh yes, it was difficult to retell the story, and I can't remember the right word to explain this story. It's very difficult. No, you can do that, and I will read 1 times more. Okay, Bruce and Spider. Many years ago, Lord Bruce was the king of Scotland. He was brave and wise king. The king of England was at war with him. The king of England was at war with him. He led his great army into Scotland to drive Bruce from the land. Robert Bruce and his brave men fought the English army 6 times, and 6 times they were beaten. Finally, his army was scattered, and he escaped to the safety of the forest and mountain. One rainy day, Bruce was resting in a cave. He could hear the rain falling heavily outside. He was tired and ready to give up all hope. Tired. He didn't know how he could win back his land. How? He didn't know how he could win back his land. He didn't know how he could speak. He didn't know how he could go there. He didn't know how he could win back his land. While he was thinking, he saw a spider weaving her web. Weaving her web. Spider weaving her web. Weaving her web. He watched her as she worked slowly and carefully. 6 times she tried to throw her thread from one beam to another, and 6 times it fell short. Poor thing, said Bruce, weaving web. You ours know what is to feel. But the spider did not give up. Robert Bruce forgot his own troubles while he watched her swing herself out on the thin line. She tried the 7th time. Would she forget? No, this time she carried the thread safely to the beam and fastened it there. I will also try a 7th time, cried Bruce. He called his men together and told them of his plan. Then he sent a message of hope to his unhappy people. He gathered the army of brave Scotmen around him. For the 7th time, they fought the King of England, and this time the Scottish army won and sent the English force back across the border. It is said that since that day, no one by the name of Bruce would ever hurt a spider. No one by the name of Bruce would ever hurt a spider. No one would ever hurt a spider. No one by the name of Bruce. No one would ever hurt a spider. The little creature thought the king never would give up. The king never to give up. That lesson has never been forgotten. Okay, second. Grace Darling. It was dark September morning. The sea was stormy. A ship hit a log off the shore of the upon a land and broke into pieces. A ship hit a log off the shore. Hit a log off the shore of the farm island. Hit a log and broke into pieces. One half was washed away. Some of the crew clung to the other half that lay on the log, but the heavy wave was washing over it. A lighthouse stood on one of the nearby islands. Grace Darling and her father lived there because her father was the lighthouse keeper. Although that night they listened to the storm and the cry of the drowning man. When daylight came, Grace could see the wreck and the man climbing to the mast. Climbing to the mast. But it was a mile away across the angry water. "We must try to save them," she cried. "We will take the boat out at once." "It's no use, Grace," said her father. "We can't reach them." He was an old man and he knew the force of the mighty wave. "But we can't stay here and watch them die," said Grace. "We must try to save them." Finally, her father agreed and they launched their boat into the fierce water. Grace pulled one oar and her father pulled the other. They rowed straight toward the wreck. But it was hard rowing against such a stormy sea. It seemed as though they would never reach the shipwreck. At last, they were near the rock, but they were in great danger. Their boat could easily drift away or be broken on the sharp log. Grace fought bravely to keep the boat steady in the howling wind and wild sea. Her father climbed onto the wreck, and one by one the exhausted sailor was helped on board his boat. The sailor grasped the oar and lowered them all to the safety of the lighthouse. Grace gently nursed the injured man until they were strong enough to return home. Grace Darling is buried in a little churchyard by the sea, not far from the old lighthouse. Every year many people visit her grave. A statue has been placed there in honor of the brave young woman. It is of a woman lying in rest, holding a boat oar in her right hand. The statue tells of a noble's deed which made Grace Darling famous. They tell of the noble deed which made Grace Darling famous. All this happened a long time ago, but the name of Grace Darling will never be forgotten. Okay, Grace Darling. I will tell you about this story. Grace Darling is the name of the young woman, and she lived with her father in the lighthouse because her father is the lighthouse keeper. One day, the storm was very strong, and the ship in the sea was destroyed by the wave. And the windy storm destroyed the ship into the two pieces, and one piece went away from here, and the other side many sailors had gathered in the other ship. That next day, Grace Darling saw the people on the ship, and she thought she must go there and save the many people. Then she said her father about his plan, but her father didn't agree first, and because he think it would be very dangerous, and he didn't take her to the end to the death. But Grace Darling would never give up, and she said her father that they must save the people in the ship. Then he agreed, and they went to the sea in their boat. They rowed the boat against the wave, but it was very hard to arrive there. But finally, they had done, and they could save the people on the ship. Then they returned to the lighthouse, and Grace Darling nursed the people to cure. After that, Grace Darling was dead and buried in the lighthouse, and many people saw the statues, and many people can think the Grace Darling's love for many people, or the dangers, for the people in danger. It was also difficult, and I can't retell the story exactly, but I think it would be better when I practice every day. Okay, so today is Thursday, and I'm very busy.